Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Aecon's 52nd annual meeting of shareholders and the first live AGM in 4 years. Nice to be back together. Je souhaite la bienvenue à tous nos amis actionnaires ici présents. Je m'appelle John Beck et je suis président du conseil du groupe Aecon. My name is John Beck and I'm the chairman of the Aecon Group. Joining me this morning are Jean-Louis Bronx, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Aecon, David Smales, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, Martina Doyle, General Counsel, Public Company and Corporate Secretary, and Cordana Terkalis, Senior Vice President of Human Resources. In addition to those at the head table, a number of Aecon's officers and senior leadership team members are in attendance with us this morning. Also attending this morning's meeting are each of our director nominees, as well as Sal Bianco and Wenzel Reyes of PricewaterhouseCoopers, the corporation's auditors. This meeting offers registered shareholders and duly appointed proxy holders the opportunity to participate, ask questions, and vote at the meeting. If you have a question or comment related to an item of business, please raise your hand when prompted or make your way to a microphone when prompted. As in past years, we expect that the vast majority of all votes have already been cast in advance of this meeting by proxy. That said, registered shareholders and duly appointed proxy holders will be allowed to vote at this meeting in accordance with the instructions given during the course of the meeting. Once the formal business of the meeting has been completed, we will have a question and answer session during which the aforementioned members of management, our independent lead director, and our chair of the Corporate Governance, Nominating, and Compensation Committee will be available to answer your questions. We'll try to address as many questions as possible during the Q&A session. In the interest of time, we ask that you limit any questions or comments to 2 minutes. Let me briefly explain the format of today's meeting. We'll first deal with administrative items and then continue our meeting with the formal business, which is to receive the financial statements, to elect directors, to hold an advisory vote on Aecon's approach to executive compensation, and to reappoint the auditors. Once the formal portion of the meeting is complete, we will hold a Q&A session. I now call this meeting of shareholders to order. I will act as chair of this meeting, and Martina Doyle will act as secretary of this meeting. To expedite the formal portion of this meeting, Mr. David Smales will second all motions. Unless there's an objection, Josette Coffeyberg and Rumela Mukherjee of Computershare Investor Services, Aecon's registrar and transfer agent, will act collectively as a scrutineer for this meeting. I would ask Martina Doyle to briefly address certain administrative and legal aspects of this meeting.
Mr. Chair, I would like to report that proper notice of the meeting, together with a form of proxy and the Management Information Circular dated May 2nd, 2023, have been sent to each registered shareholder of record on April 10th, 2023, the record date for this meeting, and have also been sent to all other persons entitled thereto. The mailing of materials has been certified by Computershare Investor Services, Inc. Additional copies of these materials are also available on our website or under our profile on SEDAR. Accordingly, unless there's an objection, I will dispense with the reading of the notice of meeting. A copy of the notice of meeting and proof of service shall be annexed to the minutes of the meeting. The scrutineer has provided a report on attendance, and it shows that there are 59 shareholders or proxy holders presently holding 21,878,843 common shares, or 35.55% of the issued and outstanding shares eligible to vote represented at this meeting. And accordingly, I declare that the requisite quorum of shareholders is present in person or represented by proxy, and therefore the meeting is properly constituted for the transaction of business. The scrutineer's report on attendance will be annexed to the minutes of the meeting. Before moving forward with the transaction of business and any subsequent discussion of Aecon's future, and in light of the regulatory environment that all Canadian public companies currently operate in, as General Counsel, Public Company, and Corporate Secretary of the Corporation, I would like to remind everyone that certain information discussed here today, whether as part of remarks or in response to questions, may constitute forward-looking information and is therefore subject to important risks, assumptions, and uncertainties. Actual results could differ materially from the conclusions, forecasts, and projections discussed during this meeting, as certain material factors and assumptions were applied in drawing conclusions, forecasts, and projections set out in the forward-looking information. Additional information about these and other important risks and uncertainties and material factors and assumptions that could cause results to differ materially from any forward-looking information can be found in Aecon's public disclosure record, particularly our annual and quarterly MD&A filed under our profile on SEDAR at www.sedar.com. Except as required by applicable securities laws, forward-looking information discussed at the meeting today speaks only as of today, and Aecon undertakes no obligation to publicly update or revise any forward-looking information, whether as a result of new information, future events, or otherwise. As PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, our incumbent auditors, is the only accounting firm eligible for appointment as auditors at the meeting, unless any registered shareholder or proxy holder requests a ballot on this matter, the reappointment of auditors will be dealt with by way of show of hands. The election of directors and advisory vote on executive compensation will be conducted by ballot. In order to keep this meeting moving efficiently, we have arranged for certain shareholders to move the resolutions to be considered at this meeting and to be seconded. Of course, any registered shareholder or duly appointed proxy holder may comment on any resolution prior to the vote, but should hold any comments on general matters until following the formal portion of the meeting. I have the minutes of the last meeting of shareholders of the corporation. Unless there's an objection, I will dispense with the reading of the minutes of such meeting. John Beck will now transact the business of this meeting.
Thank you, Martina. The first item of business is the presentation of the consolidated financial statements of the corporation as reported by PricewaterhouseCoopers, the auditors of the corporation. These include the consolidated balance sheet, the consolidated statement of income, the consolidated statement of comprehensive income, the consolidated statement of changes in equity, and the consolidated statements of cash flow all for the year ended December 31, 2022, and the report of the auditors thereon. These financial statements are publicly available and were mailed to shareholders earlier this year. Our financial statements are available on our website or under our profile on SEDAR for anyone who did not receive a copy. I would ask the Secretary to formally place the financial statements, including the report of the auditors, before the meeting. The next item of business is the election of directors. The number of directors to be elected at this meeting has been fixed by a resolution of the board at 10. The corporation's nominees, namely myself, Anthony Franceschini, J.D. Hole, Susan Wolberg-Jenna, Stuart Lee, Eric Rosenfeld, Jean-Louis Servance, Monica Sloan, Deborah Stein, and Scott Ton are each to be elected to hold office until the close of the 2024 annual meeting of shareholders of the corporation, or until their successors are duly elected or appointed in accordance with the articles and bylaws of the corporation. I would ask Gordana Terkalis to nominate each of the previously named individuals. For your information, proxies submitted prior to this meeting representing approximately 35.5% of shares of the corporation were voted, with each of the nominees receiving votes in favor ranging from approximately 98.3% to 99.1%.
Mr. Chair, my name is Gordana Terkalis. I'm a shareholder of Aecon, and I'm pleased to nominate each of the aforementioned 10 individuals as directors of the corporation for the term previously stated.
Thank you, Gordana. As the corporation did not previously receive timely notice of any further nominations of persons for election as directors of the corporation, as required by bylaw 2 of the corporation, I declare the nominations closed. May I have a motion that each of the 10 persons nominated as directors of the corporation be so elected?
Mr. Chair, I so move.
I will second the motion.
Martina, are there any questions on this motion from the registered shareholders or proxy holders present?
Mr. Chair, we have not received any questions on this motion. If any questions on this motion are subsequently received, they will be addressed at the end of this meeting.
Thank you, Martina, and thank you, David. I will now call for a vote on the motion. We will have individual voting for directors conducted by way of ballot. If you've already submitted a proxy, it's not necessary to complete and submit a ballot for this vote. If you're a registered shareholder or a proxy holder, you should have been provided with a ballot when you arrived at the meeting. If you did not and would like a ballot, please raise your hand and the scrutineer will provide one. If you have a ballot and have not completed it, please do so now. The scrutineer will collect the ballots after all matters to be conducted by ballot have been dealt with. The next item of business is the approval on an advisory basis of a resolution relating to Aecon's approach to executive compensation disclosed in the Management Information Circular dated May 2nd, 2023. I believe that Gordana has a motion in this regard.
Mr. Chair, I move that the corporation's shareholder approve on an advisory basis and not to diminish the role and responsibilities of the board, the approach to executive compensation disclosed in the Management Information Circular dated May 2nd, 2023.
I will second the motion.
Martina, are there any questions on this motion from the registered shareholders or proxy holders present?
Mr. Chair, we have not received any questions on this motion. If any questions on this motion are subsequently received, they will be addressed at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Martina. I will now call for a vote on the motion. As the advisory vote regarding the executive compensation will be conducted by ballot, if you've already submitted a proxy, it's not necessary to complete and submit a ballot for this vote. If you're a registered shareholder or proxy holder, you should have been provided with a ballot when you arrived at the meeting. If you did not and would like a ballot, please raise your hand and the scrutineer will provide one. If you have a ballot and have not completed it, please do so now. The scrutineer will collect the ballots after all matters to be conducted by ballot have been dealt with. The next item of business is the reappointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers as auditors of the corporation. I believe that Gordon has a motion regarding this item of business.
Mr. Chair, I move that PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, Chartered Accountants of the City of Toronto in the Province of Ontario, be reappointed as auditors of the corporation until close of the 2024 annual meeting of shareholders of the corporation, or until a successor is appointed at a remuneration to be fixed by the board, and that the board be authorized to fix such remuneration.
I will second the motion.
Martina, are there any questions on this motion from the registered shareholders or proxy holders present?
Mr. Chair, we have not received any questions on this motion. If any questions on this motion are subsequently received, they will be addressed at the end of the meeting.
I will now call for a vote on the motion. All in favor, please so signify by raising your hand. Withheld, if any? I declare the motion carried. We will provide registered shareholders and duly appointed proxy holders approximately 1 more minute to complete their ballots. Please provide your completed ballots to the scrutineer now if you've not already done so. The polls are now closed. That concludes the voting at today's meeting. I call upon Martina to report on the votes cast prior to the meeting.
Based on the preliminary report from the scrutineer, based on proxies received in advance of this meeting, all director nominees have been elected and the reappointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers as the auditors of the corporation has been approved. The board has been authorized to fix their remuneration. The final report on voting will be included in the minutes of the meeting and filed on SEDAR. Accordingly, I declare that each of the 10 nominees have been elected as directors of the corporation to serve until the 2024 annual meeting of shareholders of the corporation or until their successors are elected or appointed. I declare that the reappointment of PricewaterhouseCoopers as the auditors of the corporation has been approved and the board has been authorized to fix their remuneration. The advisory vote resolution on the corporation's approach to executive compensation received the majority of votes cast in support of the resolution based on proxies received in advance of this meeting. While the resolution is an advisory resolution, the board of directors of Aecon will nevertheless take the results of the vote into account as appropriate when considering future compensation policies, procedures, and decisions, and in determining whether there is a need to increase Aecon's engagement with shareholders on compensation and related matters. The final results of the individual votes for each director, the advisory resolution on executive compensation, and reappointment of the auditors will be reported in a press release and as part of the voting results filed in accordance with applicable securities legislation.
Is there any further business that may be properly brought before this meeting? If there's no further business, that concludes the formal business brought before this meeting. I now declare the formal portion of the meeting terminated. We will now provide a brief opportunity for registered shareholders and proxy holders to ask questions. During this session, we will endeavor to answer as many questions as possible. In order to allow for more questions to be answered, I may consolidate multiple questions on the same topic. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, well, there's no questions. Thank you all for being here today. And let's get back to work.